Hello mate, welcome to another video. This is Render Club and I'm just going to be playing around. I'm doing a detail shot here in the pool area of my game, and the reason I'm doing it is I'm going to talk probably at great length about this topic, but one of the challenges that we have when we create visual novels over the creation of, say, maybe a first-person shooter or a third-person game, where you create a game world and then the character roams around that game world. One of the challenges we have in visual novels is that the player doesn't have quite as much free rein to explore. And we can put that into the game to a certain extent. The ability to explore certainly is part of the game that I'm working on. However, there is only a certain amount of exploration that they can do because we're dealing with still images and not a 3D environment that they can walk around inside. So what we need to do, or what I need to do in my game, is basically add these detail shots of certain items, certain key items in the game. See, at the moment I'm doing a detail shot of the sunbed that the main character likes to sleep on every now and again. And I'm doing that is because I want to add a little bit more detail, a little bit more depth, so that the player has a bit more of a feeling of scale and that this is a real environment that they have the ability to explore at their own leisure, rather than just having a series of buttons to click on. I think a lot of visual novel creators maybe get lost in the minutiae of creating the game, and they forget that a human being is going to play this game. And yeah, okay, there are certain elements out there in the player base who are only interested really in seeing the TNA in an adult VN, or, you know, getting to the most completion level or whatever. But the whole purpose of a game is that you're creating an environment to escape in. Your environment needs to be believable. It's all about the suspension of disbelief. I mean, of course, everybody who's been watching this video series or any of my YouTube videos will have seen me rendering images for my game, and obviously they will understand the nuts and bolts that went into creating it. But at the same time, I'd like to think that they could still get lost in the game environment, because there are certain parts of the game that you don't see me rendering, and there's obviously a lot of code involved as well that you guys aren't aware of. I am basically using an adapted version of the game engine that I created in Let's Code Season 2, albeit somewhat bastardized, but you know, the game engine that I created in Season 2 was the bare bones, and I've just added to it and expanded. Basically, I'm just trying to get this focal length to a reasonable amount. I don't want everything to be too in focus, but I don't want it to be too out of focus either, so I think I'm going to have to go for an NVIDIA iRay preview and see what's going on here. Yeah, and obviously there are a lot more challenges involved in creating a 3D game where you walk around the environment yourself, because obviously, again, if there's not much interactive in that scene, then it's going to feel dead. I think one of the problems that they faced in a lot of games earlier on, certainly on in the 3D way, was that basically the environments were just geometry. They had no interactive functionality whatsoever. And even now, if you were to go back and play Fallout 4, for example, now Fallout 4 is not that old of a game, the majority of the stuff in the game you can't interact with. You know, there's a lot of stuff that you can interact with, and it is getting better. But you know, you go through Boston, where you know the first town that you visit in the game, and hardly any of the buildings are accessible, and the few that are, you know, you can pick up small items and bits and pieces, but you can't interact with the actual environment itself. Sorry, I'm sort of like looking at this image and seeing what I can improve. I think I might have to adjust the exposure slightly. I don't want to lose. This is another issue that we face, is that because the main scene is at this exposure level, if I adjust this too much, it's going to look really jarring when they go from seeing the overall picture to seeing the close-up picture. So I'm thinking that maybe I should just add something to this chair that will just give a bit more life to it. Maybe like a D-Force towel or something. That shouldn't be too hard to create. I'll go back into texture shaded mode. Pop back out of this camera for now. So yeah, you know, there are different challenges to different types of games. In the visual novel creation, as I said, is you want to create an environment where the player feels like they can get immersed in it by adding depth, by adding those little finishing touches. You know, I mean, the first chapter of my game is more or less completed. It's you know, there's about three more scenes left to create for the main storyline, but now this is where I go back and I do passes over some of the renders, maybe touch them up, maybe add more interactivity, more little funny things in there, add a bit of light humor to the game, so that there's more to do than just follow the storyline. You know, adding collectibles is another great way of adding some extra challenges to the game. And again, the game engine that I created in Season 2 has the functionality there. You just have to kind of think laterally about how you would use that engine to... Camera, it's not that one, it's that one. That's the one. It's encroaching in my space. It's just using that engine and thinking about the mechanics and how you would get it to do certain things. What's going on there? What camera is that? That's camera 3. That must have been pointed at that chair, maybe. Who knows? Right, so I'm going to create a plane here. It only needs to be about 1.5. No, if I go 1 meter, actually, I can scale it. That's fine. That. Can move that over there. And we're going to just bring that up. Right, so X scale needs to be 1.5. Z scale needs to be 75. And I need to change that to 150 because I forget I'm not working in decimals, I'm working in percentage. There we go. Now we've got a towel-sized object. I can bring that up. I'm actually going to tilt it a little bit as well. So I'm going to rotate it on the Z axis a little bit because it's not going to be on the chair perfectly flat. It's going to be kind of messily chucked on there because this is, you know, the main character is a guy in his late teens. There we go. So now we've got that. Now we can create and a D-Force modifier weight node. No, we want a edit object geometry create D-Force dynamic surface. Boom. Simulation on. Lovely jubbly. And I think we're pretty much... Oh, balls. I just realised I need to redo this. Didn't create any friggin... Silly me. Right, so let's go back into that. Right, we need to make divisions. I'm going to set divisions at about 200. It's a bit over the top for a prop that's going to be in one shot, but screw it. Alright, back to this. 150. 75. Now we can Control C. Control B. Now we can delete this one. That one's in the right place. Perfect. Now we add the D-Force modifier weight node to this one. Edit, object, geometry, create. Cool. Now theoretically when I run the simulation we should see that just sort of drape over that chair. I might rotate it along the axis a little bit more. Just drag it up. Okay. So I'm getting my simulation settings. I'm actually going to increase the gravity to 1.1 and I'm going to reduce the wind resistance to 0.05 because I don't want it flapping all over the place like a bit of paper is. Essentially I just want it to drop where it lays. So now if we run the simulation, what I think I'll do, go back to my properties. I'm actually going to drop it to like half gravity, 0.5, and I'm going to turn up the wind resistance to 0.2. And let's just see if that fixes it. We might have to increase the stabilization time because it's going to fall slower. And let's see if it's still doing the thing that it looks like it's doing. Yeah, it's still kind of... Oh yeah, the wind resistance now is blowing over to one side. To be fair though, that's not the worst thing in the world that could happen. I mean, it's gonna explode. Oh no. Too much self-collision, it's gonna go. cancel it before that happens. Please, please, please. Oh, thank God for that. Right, so that is less than ideal. Let's clear that. Right, yeah, I think the rotation's a bit too much now, so we need to do this and lower it down as much as we can get away with. So, kind of there. This is the bit that's fapping. This is where you learn how to use defaults. You just experiment, keep changing things, keep playing around. I mean, you can see how quickly a simulation runs on a basic item like this. It's not a particularly taxing function. There we go. Now we've got what we're after. Let that swing back to where it's meant to be. There we go. Right, that looks a little bit less mad. Still kind of resting on the back there, but once I apply, go back to camera 4. See, it looks alright now. If I give that a shader of a towel, so if I go into my content library and just search for towel, I'm sure a number of materials will appear. Let's see what we've got. I am thinking, how is that an actual towel, or is that just a pattern that somebody's put on a friggin' plane that has no towel properties whatsoever? Let's just try. I'm going to my... Yeah, didn't think that was going to work. Gotta find the right material for the job. I don't want to just give it any old surface properties, because of the I'm inclined to just explore that material. Let's see, select the surface property there. And alright, let's go back. Let's edit, undo, white. Oh no, that's fine. It hasn't actually applied anything. Yeah, that should work. Alright, if we just bump into what, you know, I could change the color a little bit as well. Let's give it a base color. We've got a texture there. I wonder if I just add a slight hue to it. Let's have a look and see what that looks like in iRay mode, and see if that looks even vaguely like a towel. And might need to tile the texture a little bit. It looks a little bit weird. Not a problem though. Go into geometry. Let's just say vertical tiles 3. Horizontal tiles 3. That looks a little bit better. Perfect. So I'm just going to render this out. I am going to leave you guys with my ramblings to think about, and I will see you in the next episode. But until then, you take real good care of yourselves, guys. Alright, bye bye.